back to the Daily Dribble podcast, guys. As always, I'm your host, Nick Zammit. Here joining me on this fine day, Mr. Roe Hancock.
How are we going, Nick?
Mate, switching it up. Going to you first. How are you, my man?
You caught me off guard, I won't lie. But no, going pretty well.
Good.
Glad to be back with you too for another week. It's we've said it countless times. It's our favourite time of the week to be back here in the old studio. So
in the studio, pumping out another classic. Just quickly on that.
Yep.
You heard the expression, variety is the spice of life.
From you just then, yep.
Well, there you go. It is indeed. No truer words ever spoken. Also joining us, Mr. Lee Hancock.
The king. He's back. He's back on the drinks after a long time. Yeah. After a long time, he's back.
I just want to say for a quick minute for anyone out there, Lee has, what's the word? You've kind of disappointed us? Is disappointed us the word?
I just haven't gone down that alcoholic path.
Your beer fitness has decreased exponentially. Like you've really gone downhill.
You can say that, but look back on that video, the Be Right or Good Night, where I sculled that drink faster than both of you did.
No,
so you can say
you're living off a past memory 12 months ago, are you?
You can call me the king if you want.
I honestly thought Lee was becoming a nut. I did. He hadn't had a sip of alcohol for as long as I could remember, and
October, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, yeah. But no, glad to see Lee.
No, I'm so sorry for trying to better myself and not drink alcohol. God, I'm so sorry.
So you should be. Now, moving on.
We've got a massive episode today, guys. They are. I feel like a broken record, and which I am, but they are all massive episodes. We do have a big one in store today. The outline for the show. We're going to do some quick odds and ends, recap all the notable news from throughout the week. But we're then going to do a power rankings, but we're going to do a top five just based on what we've seen so far. A top five for the teams from the East and West, and just see what we come up with here. I think it'll be interesting. I'm hoping there's a few differences that take place, and then we'll end with the week that was. We'll recap all the major events, the major headline stories, questions that have come out from the NBA over the last week or so. Guys, before we get into it, a couple of quick housekeeping issues. I do love doing this, my favourite part of the episode. Said no one ever. But a big thank you to our major sponsors at Intersport, continuing to support us and continuing to drop the absolute goods. The jerseys are flowing thick and fast. A little shout out to the team. During the week, I announced my resignation.
How did that go down?
A bittersweet moment because I love them all so dearly, but moving on to bigger and better things, I believe. But nevertheless, we really appreciate their continued support for the podcast.
Absolutely.
And forever in my heart, they'll stay. Shout out to the Intersport team. But big news on the way as well, potentially next week. I've alluded to it over the last couple of weeks, but we might have a new sponsor, hopefully in the works. We got won't give any names away, but a little sample package today. We've tried a couple of the...
Don't give too much away. I think you've said too much already.
We've tried a couple of the samples, I'll say.
We've tried the product.
It's well and truly an absolute hit. So we're hoping we get them on board. Hopefully an announcement in the next week or two. Guys, as well, last point, continue to stay up to date with all of our socials, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. What else we got? Facebook, here, there, and everywhere. As I said, LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn. There you go.
For our professional colleagues.
That's it. Professional I am. But continue. Like our TikTok is going to start getting rolling over the next couple of weeks. Our YouTube in particular, guys, be sure to subscribe to that. If you're a visual listener, subscribe to the podcast. You'll get all of our episodes in video format as soon as they drop. Leave those likes, comments, all that good stuff. We really appreciate it. So
I know I am a visual listener. When it comes to podcasts, I really, apart from Joe Rogan podcasts, I only listen and watch podcasts. And I think it's a good idea because there's a lot of references in the videos that even we do, which you wouldn't get listening just on the audio
format. Yeah.
And I mean, at the end of the day, you have the same experience watching Joe Rogan as you do with the Daily Dribble. So
just without the zeros on the end of the check coming in each month.
It's coming.
It's coming indeed. Ro, just out of curiosity, yourself, audio or visual podcast consumer?
A bit of both, to be honest. Depends what kind of podcast it is, but I'd definitely recommend our listeners and viewers give both a listen and a watch. It would help us enormously, I would have
Absolutely.
thought. So.
Listen to both. Listen to one at the start of the week and the end of the week. I am an audio listener. I'm going to be honest. I rewatch our podcasts on the video format just for the purpose of learning and bettering ourselves, because in this life, if you're not growing, you're plateauing.
Well, you're a big reader, aren't you?
I love reading.
I feel like if someone out there wanted to transcript our audio, our podcast, Nick would be on there like...
I'll give you a little cheat code for any of the audio listeners out there. The biggest game changer for me was switching it up. So when I listen to my podcast, I listen to it on 1.5 times speed.
Yep.
Now, it honestly sounds like we've all had 8 cups of coffee. The first few minutes, as you get into it, it'll sound just bizarre.
Right.
But once you do it, you can just plow through the content. 1.5 times speed. We all sound electric. The energy is popping. Give it a go for any of the audio listeners out there. See how we sound. Let us know how we sound. If we sound like we've sniffed a couple of lines of Whiz Fizz or, I
cannot imagine how you sound on 1.2, Nick.
1.5.
1.5?
No, that's how I listen to 1.5, mate. You got to go for goals.
Can you give us an impersonation of what the opening credits sound like? What's going on, guys? Nick here.
Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much in a nutshell. So be sure to check that out. There's your little friendly tip for the day. My God, we're already 5-6 minutes in. Let's get in.
Let's go.
Let's do it. Let's do some odds and ends, guys. During the week, now my hot pick of last season before he started in the NBL was Josh Giddey.
Yeah.
And he's gone on to big things, selected number 6 in the draft, doing phenomenal things for OKC, really looking the goods, a potential dark horse for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, potentially.
My pick from a couple of months ago that I think might be the heir to that throne, Dyson Daniels.
Double
DD.
DD, the man himself, he had an absolute showing out in his G League debut. 22 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, and he went 9 of 15 from the field. So his first game, you don't read into these things too much.
But at the same time, you read into it enormously.
Exactly right. And a phenomenal showing for him. I really think, like, in a class that's been talked about quite highly, Chet Holmgren probably being the main talking point. There's a lot of players in this draft who are being regarded quite highly, but I think Daniels has a bit of potential to kind of turn some heads, and I think he'll make an immediate impact in the NBA just because his game's so well-rounded and versatile. So certainly want all of our listeners out there to take a bit of a look at him, see what he can do, and just kind of keep an eye out. And, when I say I told you so at the end of the year, you kind of nod your head and say, yeah, Nick was right.
Well, I mean, that's the perfect game you'd want for an initial game, is it not? Like, imagine how many players are trying to assert themselves and make a name for themselves in the G League. And he's gone out in that first game, 22 on 9 of 15, you said.
Phenomenal.
That's probably the most ideal game you'd want for a G League start.
Dyson Daniels, a name to remember for all you guys out there. So keep up to date with all the stats. We'll be sure to keep you informed on how his progress is tracking.
Bit of NBA news that I've got. Bit of blow for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Colin Sexton's gone down with a torn meniscus. Sucks for my fantasy, but I've got to say it doesn't really, because he was only averaging, he wasn't going well. That's all right. But it is a bit of blow. I'm just excited to see what the output from the names of Darius Garland and even like Ricky Rubio.
God damn, that guy had 37 against the Knicks earlier in the week.
Where did that come from?
He absolutely lit it up. I was watching some of that game, and goodness me, he looked like Steph from beyond the arc. He really did. I reckon he's probably going to be the biggest benefactor out of Colin Sexton being out, because he gets those additional minutes that he probably wouldn't have got off the bench. But dearie me, he looked like another player.
He did.
He could almost take a bit of a turn potentially. You don't want to read into one game too much, but kind of have a career progression that is Chris Paul, Kyle Lowry, who in the back end of their career really flourish. It's one game, but you can't help but get a little bit excited about what Rubio could do. And likewise, the Cavs, they've been a bit of a surprise packet so far for the first couple of weeks of the season, certainly outperforming our expectations and many pundits out there. But I think Darius Garland will certainly be a beneficiary of this injury, and certainly hope for a speedy recovery for Sexton.
Just quickly though, Nick, sorry to interrupt.
No, please.
What do you guys make of the Cavs start to the season? They've, I reckon, probably over-exceeded everyone's expectations so far. Short sample size, haven't gotten too far into the season, had some key injuries as well. Do you think that they're a team sort of a la New York Knicks last year who could surprise everyone and make an appearance in the playoffs? Or do you think there's just a hot start and they might start to cool off a little bit?
Yeah, I think they'll cool off, because they did this last season a little bit. They started above 500 through the first 10, 15 games or so it was, I believe. And then they went on an absolutely torrid run to end the season. So, I don't think they're going to be probably bottom feeders of the East, but I don't think they're like, if they can creep into that number 10, maybe in a playing position, I think that's probably where they're looking. I think this hot start will cool down. But, they're more exciting than I thought they would be. Darius Garland, Okoro, Evan Mobley, he is just about him and Scotty Barnes probably leading the Rookie of the Year race. So there's a bit to like about them, but I do think they'll come back to earth a little bit.
They've definitely turned some heads. It goes without saying. I'd love to see them finish in that maybe 10 spot, which I think they probably will. It's just a matter of where they want to go. Like, all of them are pretty young over there. A lot of their stars, particularly Jarrett Allen, Darius Garland, they've still got to develop, and they probably do need a couple more pieces to.
You put that together, like those names you just mentioned with Sexton, Mobley. You add in, Laurie Markkinen, who's quite young. Yeah. They've got quite a good young core to build around. Like, they're not a team for now, but the next 5 years or so, there's a lot of potential with that core, but also a lot of potential to, if they develop at the rate they are, get a good piece in exchange, possibly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good point there. Another point from myself, Ro, our resident Celtics man, Jaylen Brown will be out we're looking at 1 to 2 weeks with a hamstring strain. Now, they got up today over the Bucks in OT, a game they nearly threw away, but, this is... It's not ideal timing, just for the pure fact Jaylen Brown was really kind of, I guess, asserting himself as that 1B behind Tatum.
Yeah.
And they were starting to find a little bit of chemistry just in kind of their roles, and Jaylen Brown himself stepping up. But now that's kind of taken a backward step, and we're kind of going to go into, I guess, the Jason Tatum takeover mode. And once Jaylen Brown comes back, it'll kind of be trying to readjust again to fitting him into the lineup. So it's not ideal timing.
It's so far from ideal. It's not funny, particularly given, the start of the season that the Celtics have had. But I guess there's always like a silver lining to this kind of thing. And, like we even saw in today's game, I know it went to OT, but what it actually allowed the other players within the roster to do was step up. So we saw Dennis Schroeder today have an absolutely enormous game. I think he had 38 in the end, was it?
It was something around that ballpark.
And I think, obviously JT had his normal stat line, but it just means that we're not so reliant on, one or two players on a nightly basis. So as far from ideal as it is for Jaylen Brown to go out after this start to the season, you've got to look at the positives, and I think it just means that other players have to step up, and let's see if they will going forward.
Did they lose in this game with Schroeder having 38?
No, they won. It was in OT. They got over the line. They were up by about 6 with a minute and a bit to go in regular time.
Yeah, okay.
Got over the Bucks.
Got over the Bucks. An undermanned Bucks without Lopez, Giannis, Middleton. So, this was a game they were expected to win, and they did, but it was too close for comfort. Just quickly, Ro, for yourself.
Yep.
Now, do you think this team is destined with Brown and Tatum? Do you think that is the route they should go, or that you're better off really building and becoming, solely focused on one of them? Or do you think it's a duo they can make it work?
I think they can make it work. It's the route that I'd love them to go, and I think within the organisation, it's what they envisage the team to look like going forward, led by those two.
Yeah.
In saying that, it's going to be interesting over the next 3 years, 4 years, maybe, to see if we do exceed expectations, or at least meet expectations. Because if we sort of finish outside the playoffs and towards the bottom of the 8, there's probably a chance that at least one of those guys looks elsewhere going forward. So,
especially given the East, it's getting better as well, isn't it? Like, it's actually really becoming quite deep, and there's a lot of teams that can really mount serious, pushes in that playoff position. So they're in a bit of a fight at the minute.
I think so.
I'll go on with the Celtics to talk, a bit of talk that I like to hear. Apparently there's obviously been a bit of talk around Ben Simmons and the Celtics.
Yep.
Apparently the Celtics straight up hung up on Daryl Morey after he offered, it was Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Robert Williams, and a future first round pick for Ben Simmons and Danny Green, I would have hung up the phone as well.
Absolutely absurd. I was
Horrible
speaking
move.
to you about this before the
Horrible
podcast,
move.
actually. Yeah, I just cannot believe Daryl Morey. He's a different beast.
Yeah,
isn't
what's
he?
wrong with him?
Something's not all there. I think with old Daz. You can like asking for Jaylen Brown in exchange for Ben Simmons is asking, a fair bit as it is, given that. I reckon Jaylen Brown, you've got more security in terms of, I think you know what you're going to get.
And you've got more two-way ability as well.
Two-way ability, and then adding, who was it? Rob Williams, Marcus,
and a future first round.
You're ripping the heart out of the Boston Celtics. Plus the guts, plus everything, plus the backbone. No.
And you're getting Ben Simmons, who's an unproven performer, especially on the offensive end. Defensive, he's one of the top tier talents in the league. Danny Green.
Who missed that Lakers shot? That's what he's known for now. That's what I know him as. Danny Green.
Danny Green, yeah. Yeah, well, that's it. And he's getting long in the tooth. He's hit and miss. So you're not really... this I would hang up as well, to be honest. So
while we're more Celtics topic, they were talking about Marcus Smart in the trade talks. Apparently he right now isn't happy with his position over at Boston. What do we think of that? I've been hearing things how he says like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown just don't like to pass.
Yeah.
I do feel bad for him, because he is the dog of that team. He's almost the heart of it. But I'd love to see him somewhere where he can thrive a bit more.
I hate the way he's being treated, to be honest, because at the end of the day, you're right, he is the heart and the soul of the Boston Celtics. But for some reason, whenever you see any type of trade rumors floating around, Marcus Smart inevitably becomes the guy who's involved in that trade package. And regardless of whether it comes true or not, and these trade packages that involve him haven't come true so far, I don't think it'd be a nice thing to give so much of your
heart and soul
to that.
He is the heart and soul, isn't he?
And then
unequivocally the heart and soul
chucked up into trade conversations. Not on, and particularly given that the Boston Celtics are now very much underperforming. I think he's probably, he's not overly happy with the franchise, which is understandable.
I think he just deserves to be valued more than just a trade piece. It's not like he's like the main trade piece. It's like one of those ones that get chucked in there. He's more than that.
Yeah.
He's valuable to any team he goes to, mostly on the defensive end, but he's almost like that Pat Bev heart and soul.
Yeah.
That's a fair comparison.
Yep. Yeah, better shooter, but
Well, absolutely. Well said, Lee. Another point from myself, a couple of big names have entered the NBA's health and safety protocols during the week. Most notably, should I say, Joel Embiid and Nikola Vucevic.
Jojo for my fantasy absolutely killed me.
It's a killer. It's a killer. And two teams here that are really kind of, I guess, surpassing expectations in the Bulls and 76ers. Quite big blows to both teams. Probably more so for the 76ers, just for the pure fact that Vooch has struggled a little bit to start the season, but the Bulls have continued to keep on winning. But yeah, for the 76ers in particular now, they're quite undermanned. Like over the last couple of weeks, Danny Green's been out, Tobias Harris has been out. Both have come back in the last week.
Yeah.
Ben Simmons is out though. Yeah. Joel Embiid out now as well. So they're kind of in a little bit of a, I guess, keeping the boat afloat because they are undermanned. And, we're seeing blokes such as Tyrese Maxey, Korkmaz, step up and fill these roles, Paul Reed. But it really is kind of a funny predicament they're in, aren't they? Because they are a good team when they're at full strength. But it just feels as if they can't get everyone healthy at the same time or on the court at the same time.
It clearly is hurting them as well because you look over the last, I think might be on a 3-game losing streak at the moment. But I think even though they're on a 3-game losing streak, I think so far they've actually been pretty valiant this season, given that they've had very key players, vital players to their success out. And they've still been managed to get wins on the board, and I think they might be sitting in at 6 in the East at the moment. But for a while there, they were sitting for I think first or second. So it's just a matter of getting these guys healthy. Because I think even without Simmons, they've shown that they can be a team who's still contending at the end of the year.
Yep.
Well, I think that's the most important thing. They've proved throughout the season so far that they don't need Simmons to win. I remember we were talking about probably, oh God, I couldn't tell you how long ago. It was months ago now, but we were saying, would you rather build around Joel Embiid or Simmons?
What a stupid question.
But back then it wasn't, because they were not even 1 and 2. It was like 1A, 1B.
We all said Embiid, didn't we?
I feel like one of us said Simmons maybe, but like
I reckon I was the twat who said Simmons.
I'm fairly sure I said Simmons.
It wouldn't. I swear we all said Simmons, but
I think we did.
It's just it proves evident that they don't need him for wins, and that's a great thing. They have those other guys that can, step up in his absence.
Yeah,
absolutely. Guys, still got a lot to get through today. Odds and ends, done and dusted, unless you guys want to impart.
I just had a bit of sad news.
I bet you did.
What have you got for news? So John Wall, he has no future plans of playing with the Rockets again. They're all on good terms. He still goes to their games. I've seen him on the sidelines at their games. What?
No, nothing. No, carry on.
But it's unlikely that he's going to sign with another team, I've heard.
It does feel inevitable, and really at this point in his career, he's still a good player. We saw him with the Rockets last year, and he was still able to contribute to a team.
Just the contract's too big.
It really is a hard position for any team and himself to be in, because that contract is one of the largest in the league. With his injury history, it really makes it super, super difficult. I don't think there's really any teams out there, unless a buyout took place, that would want to take on a $40+ million contract on a guy with his health conditions.
Yeah.
Like it is, it does seem inevitable that he will move on, yet I don't know, there will have to be a buyout that takes place from Houston's part, because no one will take on that contract.
If he doesn't sign with another team, though, and this is how his career ends, that would be absolutely heartbreaking.
For any new listeners or new fan, in the last couple of years of the NBA out there, you can't fully appreciate what an explosive and phenomenal talent he was. He's up there with Russell Westbrook in terms of probably the most athletic guys in the league. And we really didn't get to see all that he had to offer for the league. He is just explosive to the nth degree.
He's a guy that you cannot afford to have those kind of injuries, because as you were mentioning, he's one of the most explosive guys in the league, or at least he was once upon a time.
Yep.
And when you're constantly riddled by injuries, to an extent, you start to lose that explosiveness. And we saw good signs from him at times last year, didn't we?
There were bright sparks.
There's no doubt about that. But I think overall, the Rockets in themselves are trying to rebuild, and I don't think he's necessarily a part of their future. And when he's on that kind of contract, you're probably not overly keen to take a punt on him if you're another team
100%.
either. So still sad, very sad. Tears.
Absolutely indeed. Guys, let's move on to our top 5 power rankings. Yeah, I reckon a lot of our listeners out there are probably familiar with the power rankings. Today, we're going to give our top 5. We're just going to do the top 5 and focus on teams over the last couple of weeks that have trended in the upwards trajectory. So our top 5, guys out there, once again, we'd love to hear what you think of our rankings, where we went right, where we went wrong. I'm hoping there's a few little differences here. I think there will be for the most part, maybe. But bless you there, Lee. You are blessed indeed. But yeah, so we might get into it, guys. Let's start with our number 1 pick each. I might kick us off here. My number 1 on top of my top 5 power rankings is the Golden State Warriors. Now, they currently sit, they're just as a record. I guess I didn't count today's games as such, but they've just beaten the Bulls. They've rounded out to 11-1. So a phenomenal showing there. They've really, I guess, flexed quite a bit of muscle. Even without Klay Thompson, they've really looked like the most dominant team in the league. I kind of take into account a little bit that they've had one of the top 3 easiest schedules so far.
Yeah.
So it's certainly been a contributing factor. But just a little fact here I saw the other day, excluding today's game, Steph had 40 against the Bulls. So exclude that, pardon me, little burp there. Yep. The other day, Steph dropped the first 50-point game of the season.
Yeah, huge.
But before that, he'd only had one game where he'd crossed 30 points.
This season.
This season, yeah, absolutely.
Really?
So this season, yet it's quite a good sign for the Warriors. Just the fact, like we saw Andrew Wiggins go off the other day, they're getting contributions from other blokes.
Yes.
Like for as much as Steph is probably one of the front runners for MVP, they are getting other contributors. So for me, they are my number one team. They are looking like the Warriors of old. They've still got a lot to look forward to in the sense that Clay will come back. I kind of like the fact that, we're not seeing many minutes of Kuminga and Moody. Like, I think it'll hurt them in a couple of years' time, potentially.
Yeah.
But, they're in a win now mode. You need to make the most of Steph, like, in this element.
Sure.
So I think they're really making the smart choice, and they're looking like a potential Western Conference winner at the moment.
I mean, I had the same, and you hit it on the head in saying it's just the other guys that have stepped up.
Yeah.
We don't have to completely rely on Steph now. We had Andrew Wiggins with the 35-point game. We had Jordan Poole. It's not rare for him to have a 20-point game, 25-point game. It's just those other guys stepping up. Not to talk about their defensive rating. They're rated the best defensive team in the league as of yet this year.
Gary Payton going off. Gary Payton the second. Gary Payton Jr.
It's just a matter of all these other guys stepping up. And like you said, without Clay back,
it's scary.
It's scary. And it's I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon either. If they keep going in this trajectory, why aren't we considering them a serious contender? Because I know I didn't at the start of the year.
Yep.
Now I am.
I think the next week or two will really be telling. As I said, they've had one of the easiest schedules so far.
Yeah.
Over the next week or two, it's kind of started today against the Bulls.
Yeah.
But their schedule does get quite a little bit more difficult. So we'll kind of really get a good gauge on where they're at. They've knocked off quite a few of the easy teams. Their only loss so far coming against the Grizzlies. But we will, over the next week or two, get quite a good representation of where they're at. But so far, so good.
I've got them at number one as well. And I mean, the difference between teams who will be truly contending at the end of the year and teams who won't be, the teams who will be truly contending beat the teams who they're supposed to beat.
100%. That's all you got to do, isn't it? Beat the teams that are in front of you. You can't help whether the schedule's easy or not. You've just got to win.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
So they've done exactly what they needed to do to start the season. And tell you what, Steph, he has to be the front. I think I saw the other day that KD was the front runner for MVP, but based off the team around him, even though there's other contributors, to have a 10-1 start to
11-1 as of now.
Incredible. Will they be going for the 73-9 record?
I tell you what, at the current trajectory, they're well and truly on pace. But I agree with that. Like, if you kind of digressing slightly, you do look at the MVP race. You look at Steph's numbers. It's a glaring positive indicator. But you also look at their record. Like, they're 11-1. The Nets have kind of, I guess, had a somewhat slower start. Who'd they beat? They only just got over the line over the Pelicans after a bit of a scare there late on.
Yeah.
But the Warriors have really looked in complete control.
Yeah.
And, if you're basing it on what's happened so far, I think Steph is the front runner. He was my pick, and so far so good, steady as she goes.
Let me just say before we move on, I think we're not giving enough credit, and we haven't even talked about him this year, to Steve Kerr. Because none of these players are all-out superstars except for Steph, and he's combining them together and bringing out their full potential. It's the reason why he's one of the best coaches in NBA history.
100%. You're saying no, please.
I was just about to say, I think he's just an incredible people person by the sounds of it. He knows how to work with people, and he knows what works with certain people and what doesn't work with other people. So I think. I just think in general we don't talk about the coaches when it comes to success. We only talk about the coaches when it comes to failure. And
I was about to say, as soon as failure, a couple of losses pile up, first name on the chopping block is always the coaches.
Yeah, 100%. So, credit where credit's due.
Well, right, well, three, I guess, all in sync on that one. Our number one pick was all with the Warriors.
I'll go second if you want.
Please do. Lee, you're number two in our power rankings. Who have you got?
I had my ex. The Washington Wizards. I had the Wizards second. They've just been going crazy. The last week they've won all three games.
3 in a row.
They won against the Grizzlies. They won against the Bucks, which was a big one. They won against the Cavs as well. And this is all on Bradley Beal averaging only 20 and shooting 27% from the 3-point line. like the Golden State Warriors, it comes back to just all these other supporting casts thriving.
Yeah.
It just proves that the Russ trade, the trade from Russ to go to the LA Lakers, has proved so beneficial.
Yeah.
Kuz, even KCP, Dinwiddie, and especially Montrezl Harrell have just been thriving in their new destination.
I'm loving this version of like Montrez in particular, but Kuz.
Yeah,
man,
Kuz.
This guy's getting bored. He's knocking down tough shots. He's like against Cavs the other day. They looked well and truly almost gone in the last minute or so, and a couple of big threes from Kuz really tipped the scale in their favor and got them the win.
Yeah.
As a Lakers fan, it's kind of somewhat depressing to see how the Lakers are trending. And then you look at the Wizards and these guys who are popping off. You see Caruso with the Bulls going off. You see KCP, Harrell, etc. Lonzo going off with the Bulls as well. Likewise, it is quite disheartening.
Yeah,
because they're in a new element and they're just absolutely thriving.
Yeah,
Lee, just quickly, you signed the contract. You're on the dotted line. Are you now? You're seeing the Wizards just in this new iteration with the new lineup. Are you still happy with your decision?
I'm happy with my decision. I think you've got to stay put with where you are. I love most of the guys over at the Wizards, but
so why'd you leave them? What was it? What made you change?
Now I love them with all their good players, but it's more so I love I'm so connected with most of those guys on the Hornets, especially with Miles Bridges, his transcendence upwards. But no, nonetheless, I'm very happy for the Wizards. I can't wait to see what they do. Unfortunately, Brad Beal's grandmother, I believe it was, passed away recently. So he's going to be sitting out against the Magic tomorrow. But it's in the light of that, it's going to show how these other players can bring out their full potential. Also, while we're on the Wizards topic, happy birthday to Birdie Beetle. Davis Bertans, his birthday today.
Is it really? How old is he turning?
Couldn't tell you.
That's right. Happy birthday to
Birdie
out
Beetle.
there,
Another year older, another year wiser.
Another year wiser. I hope he starts knocking down some shots.
Some smart shots.
It's funny. It's like players like him and Duncan Robinson and, players of the kind. When that's all you do, knock down threes, and you're not doing that, it really is quite glaring. Nevertheless, Ro, we'll move on to your number 2. Who have you got?
All right. I don't want this segment to become too predictable, but I've gone with the Washington Wizards as well.
Yeah, there you go.
They're on a 3-game win streak, and I think they've had an 8-3 start to the season. But the thing that's surprised me so far with the Washington Wizards is, even though a lot of these guys haven't played with each other before, it just seems like the team chemistry is as high as any team in the league at the moment. It's actually unbelievable. I've watched pretty much, I would say 80% of the Washington Wizards games this year, which is unbelievable.
How are you doing that with work? I can't watch 80% of games.
I tell you what, I hope there's not any listeners of your workplace out there, because that is quite an obvious sign that your mind is not on the job.
No. There's a thing called a lunch break, lads. So
that's a convenient lunch break.
Lunch break. Yeah. Ideal timing.
Yeah, look, it falls perfectly every day. But,
tell you what, the work from home situation, it does not get any better.
It's pretty good. I won't lie. But no, I think they're on the way up, the Washington Wizards, and they needed a fresh start. Things were getting stagnant for a long while there with the Washington Wizards, and I've got a lot of hope for them suddenly so far this season.
Absolutely.
They look incredible, and
especially given Bradley Beal's not performing at a level we kind of expected, or not to the level that he was last season, and yet they're still winning. They're top of the Eastern Conference.
Top of the East, and on par with maybe Tyler Herro. I think Montrezl Harrell coming off the bench, he's been incredible this year. He's probably a nightly double threat, to be honest with you. And he's the other question that I actually had regarding these guys who were playing for the Lakers last season was, do you think playing with LeBron has a significant impact on your own personal development? I know for some players it goes, your personal development goes up, and then for other players it goes down. So, but I think for Montrezl Harrell, and as you were mentioning, Cole Kuzma, I think they've sort of come of age, and with this increased responsibility, not playing in LeBron's shadows, as incredible as LeBron is, he probably does impact a few of these players' development.
We've got a lot to get through, so I won't touch on this too long, but just quickly.
Nick doesn't want to talk shit on LeBron.
No, I'm a massive,
I love my favourite player, but
I think part of it might be due in fact to LeBron. Like it's certainly a contributing factor, partly as well, to the bright lights of LA. It is the most, there's the most eyes on LA. Like the Lakers, when you think of the NBA, they're the team that probably comes first to mind, maybe the Bulls with MJ, but the Lakers as such are the first and foremost team. So there is a lot of pressure, a lot of televised games, a lot of pressure from the fans, from the organization, from everyone as a whole, regardless of if LeBron was there or not.
Yeah.
I think LeBron being there certainly plays an impact, but we've also seen, I guess, the positive impact he's had. So,
absolutely.
I mean, he gets teams wins, but it brings it back to that leadership debate we had a while ago. If you compare him to Chris Paul brings up these players where LeBron he really wants to win and he'll do anything.
I've also seen a lot of reports from players like Kevin Love, from JaVale McGee, from other players out there who have said, by far, hands down, LeBron is the best, I guess, teammate they've played with. And it's not, I guess, as like a teammate, he's not always shown in the most favorable light. So,
I just think for guys' personal development, like just having that increased responsibility, not playing alongside one of the best players, if not the best player to ever live, it's always going to have an impact, isn't it?
Yeah,
but that's
definitely.
not to say he's not an incredible teammate, because he is.
He is.
He sort of gives these other guys a name for themselves when it's all said and done. But what about yourself, Nick?
Yeah, let's run them through. Geez, we're going to go deep in the piece today, lads. So, oh my goodness. My number 2, now I'm not taking today's results into consideration. The Chicago Bulls, I gave them not a slight demerit, but slight demerit. It is a slight demerit, we'll say. Just for the pure fact, now Vooch is out. They're missing Pat Williams. They're slightly undermanned. Yet, they're continuing to produce at a level that is kind of somewhat reminiscent of the Knicks last season.
Yeah.
A team where the expectations weren't as high, yet they're continuing to prove themselves. They are surpassing what people think of them. They've probably got more top-tier talent than the Knicks did last season.
Yeah.
And excluding the last game or two, DeRozan was is in the, at the MVP table. He's up there. And they've got on a nightly basis blokes who, if DeRozan's not firing, right, Levine can step up and fill that void.
Next man
Absolutely.
Up.
So, they've got quite a few options. Vooch hasn't quite found his form. It'll be interesting to see how they go without him. Now, Tony Bradley steps into that role to fill the void. But they're quite a team. Alex Caruso, he's making a case off the bench for Defensive Player of the Year. He's certainly, if at the minute you were to do it, first team all defensive. He's been absolutely electric as a bright spark to not only increase the tempo and pace, but also to bring that defensive hustle and determination. Multiple times you see him diving around the floor,
taking charges.
It's November. We've just started the season. If this guy is bringing this intensity and level of commitment, it kind of permeates through the rest of the team. Other blokes following behind
Rubs
that.
Off on.
For me, the Chicago Bulls are my number 2 team as a time of writing. Not taking into account today's loss. I think they've been phenomenal so far.
In response to that, they were my number 3, so we may as well kick on.
Yep.
You're exactly right. Their offense from day one, like game 1 of the season, they've been absolutely brilliant. But now it's just starting to click on how to work with each other to actually get wins on the board.
Mm-hmm.
You've got DeRozan and Levine, that offensive just juggernaut. They just push it. Like you say, Caruso and Lonzo Ball even as defense.
And I think it might have been you, it might have been Bro, might have been a lot of people out there, but a big concern coming into the season was that defensive capability.
Yeah.
But they have really, have been quite surprising on that front, in large part to Caruso and Lonzo, those players you've mentioned, but other players have stepped up as well. DeRozan, Vooch, they haven't been, just a leaky plug on the defensive end. They've certainly shown up on that end as well as the offensive.
In terms of Vooch, not, you could say clicking so far, just had a look. He's putting up like 15 shots a game and making 6 of them. Does Vooch need to put up 15 shots a game with Levine and DeRozan there? I don't think so.
I think with the team they've got, the way it's constructed, we've so often remarked at how he's able to be a stretch 5.
Yeah.
you've got players like Levine who can shoot. You've got players like DeRozan somewhat developed an outside shot.
Yeah.
Lonzo's now developed he's got a shot in general and quite a capable outside stroke. You need to get Vooch, the big man Vooch in the paint, and I think looking to do some little floaters and dumpers, a couple of hook shots here and there, and really kind of dominate that area. You don't need him outside.
Yeah, like he's taking a lot of threes this season when he doesn't need
it's
to.
It's not necessary.
If you're going to try and develop him over at the Bulls, you've got to, like you said, get him in the paint.
Yep. Do you know what I think with Vooch? I think he's still in Orlando mode where I reckon it takes I actually legitimately think it takes a little while to get out of that mode where you feel like you need to take these kind of shots from outside the arc, for example, when you don't actually need to do that anymore because you've got capable scorers, guys who revolve their entire game around, their production on the offensive end. So I think he might take it just a little while to leave that Orlando Magic role where he had to take that massive position on the offensive end. But no, they're looking really good.
To be honest, it does fall back on the coaches though. He's putting up 7 3-pointers a game. He is. I just checked.
What?
He's putting up 6.5 or something, but round it to 7. It comes back to the coaches as well. If you're putting your big man out on the perimeter, what are you doing?
Billy Donovan needs to, and it's kind of positive in the sense that they're still getting wins and they haven't ironed out their perfect formation or system yet. It kind of bodes well for their future, hopefully, if it can click in the way we hope it does. So, come the playoffs, hopefully they've kind of ironed out the best situation for them. Yeah. They kind of lack quite a bit of big man depth. Tony Bradley coming over from OKC, it was, I believe, he's their backup at the moment. So, hopefully over the next couple of days, as we said, Vooch going into the health and safety protocols, he can kind of help keep the ship afloat. But an adequate number 3 there from you there, Lee. Ro, we're well and truly into the piece. We're going to speed up proceedings here. Who have you got as your number 3?
Need to make a move on. I've gone with the Phoenix Suns with my number 3 spot, sitting at 8-3 to start the season. But the reason they've taken my number 3 spot is they're on an absolute roll at the moment. They're 7 game win streak. So after having a really ordinary start to the season, that it seems like they're back to where a lot of people thought they would be prior to this season starting. The usual suspects, CP3, Dev Book, DeAndre Ayton.
Frank Kaminsky.
Yeah, Frank the Tank.
Frank the Tank.
Franklin,
Franklin the Turtle has been on fire lately. For Australian fans out there, you might be familiar with Franklin the Turtle. It's been unreal, hasn't it?
Yeah, no, it's been
it was a slow couple of games to start with, but that 7-game win streak, they've looked really, really like the team that made the finals last season.
Yeah, and you can't read into the first 5 games of the season, can you? There's always teams who generally finish down the bottom of the standings at the end of the season who start hot and vice versa. So they've been incredible. And I've given this spot just due to the fact that they've got all this momentum and I don't see it slowing down anytime soon. So number 3 for Phoenix.
Fantastic. I'll go with my number 3. The LA, I would love to say Lakers, but it's not. The LA Clippers, they're fit and firing at the moment. They're on a 6-game win streak. They're really been a bit of a surprise for me because I had not that high expectations for them going into the season. Without Kawhi, I thought it was a massive void to fill. Yeah. Yet Paul George has stepped up. They're seeing over the last week in particular increased contributions from Eric Bledsoe, who started the season slow. Reggie Jackson, Terrence Mann has been quiet himself. Yet they're just getting, enough output from these guys, enough output to keep them getting wins, keep them afloat, And Paul George, certainly, he's not, if you're looking at a top 5, he's probably right on the periphery of the MVP talk, but he has been elite so far. Yeah. Come the season's end, it would not be a shock at all if he made the top 3. The Clippers themselves, 6 on the bounce. In terms of momentum, it is riding high. I don't think it'll continue to the extent it is at the minute. I see them in that kind of 5th to 6th range. Yeah. But it's certainly a fantastic last week or 2 from them. So I give them my number 3 pick.
Good on.
Guess what? I'm going to continue.
Oh, yeah.
I'm greedy and I
You
love
are greedy.
I'm greedy and I love the spotlight. I won't talk on it too long. My number 14, the Washington Wizards, as we alluded to, top of the East, 3 on the bounce, all being done whilst Bradley Beal is not firing, which has been a huge point. It's wicked to see that they can continue to win. Just I guess as a comparison, we've seen the Portland Trailblazers.
Yeah.
Whilst Dame's not firing, they've been losing. Granted they won today, excluding that, they've been pretty ordinary so far. If their marquee man's not firing, they're, in an absolute dogfight and losing more often than not.
Yeah.
But for the Wizards, you are. Montrezl Harrell, phenomenal.
Yeah.
Kyle Kuzma, phenomenal. They're getting contributions out of everyone.
Yeah.
And, it kind of feels like a matter of time before Bradley Beal really hits his straps.
Yeah.
Just for all the listeners and punters following along out there, Lee and myself, we made a little fantasy trade during the week. I got rid of my number 1 pick in Damian Lillard. I got rid of him and PJ Washington. In exchange, I got Lee. I got Bradley Beal and Terry Rozier.
Yeah. It's a good trade. I think it's fair trade.
It's a fair trade. It's a fair trade. Bradley Beal had an ordinary week. Dame has started to heat up a little bit. But, I think Bradley Beal, I think it's promising that they're still winning top of the East. And they're a team that's actually looking more than competent. They look a lot more well-rounded without Russell Westbrook. They look a lot more team-focused as opposed to kind of 2 guys running the show.
Yeah.
Positive signs from the Wizards. I give them my number 3. Oh, wait.
Number 4.
Number 4. We're rattling through them now. My number 4 pick.
I just want to say real quick, before you go on, in response to what you were saying about the Blazers and the Wizards comparison, I do agree to an extent, but I do think people on the Blazers are stepping up. Like CJ's stepping up, Nurk is stepping up.
Anthony Simons
is stepping up, and so is Norman Powell. The key thing you said was it's not translating to wins, whereas the Wizards are translating it to wins, which is the massive point. And while did you just have anything to say, bro? Sorry.
Wait, what was the point there?
My point was, with Dame not firing, I don't think they're a god hopeless team because there are other guys that step up in his absence.
But are they stepping up enough? I was hoping this season their defense would step up. God damn, I think I nearly had. I said Larry Nance Jr. is one of the potential watch-out 6th-man player of the year. It's
horrible.
Their defense is the aspect. They were one of the worst-ranked teams last year on defense.
Yeah.
And it hasn't improved greatly.
No.
Yet, that they are a leaky plug.
Yeah.
And if they're not scoring points, they're losing.
Yeah, for sure.
They're such a weird team because part of me thinks, you look at that, we've alluded to so many times, they're starting 5, Nurk, Powell, Covington, McCollum, Lillard.
On paper, it's great. They should be getting wins.
Should be winning. They should be one of the top tier championship contending teams in the league, and they're not. So part of you thinks maybe they should just blow it up. Yeah. McCollum goes or Lillard goes or.
But how long have we been saying that?
Too long.
Ridiculously long, and nothing's changed.
What are we up to? You've done your.
I've done my number 4.
Ro?
Number 4 for you, my man.
Number 4, Chicago Bulls. I don't really know what else I can say that you guys haven't said already, but I think no one expected them to have this start to the season, and they look like a team who could be truly contending. Like, I know we've seen teams start the season hot, and you start to think, well, will they be at the pointy end of the season? Yep. And I actually think that the Chicago Bulls have shown me signs that they certainly will be contending.
You know who would be a happy fan out there?
Apex.
Our main man, Apex Fraser, mate. Just a little quick shout out to you, brother. I know you're an absolute. You tune in every week. I just want to give you a shout out and say, unlucky, mate. Fantasy league this week, you are getting absolutely put on the bitch.
Oh, but he's been doing it.
No. It's my time to gloat a little. I'm going to take the W there, but no, in a positive swing for you, mate. The Blazers Bulls. Enough of the Blazers talk. The Bulls are looking good, mate. Without Vooch even, Pat Williams still, I think they'll be able to keep it afloat. And, they're a team. They are pretty much the Atlanta Hawks. You can see them being an Atlanta Hawks of last season, making the conference finals. Yeah. if things fall their place, you can see a world in which they are in the conference finals again, can't you?
The Bulls.
Yep.
I just see way more in them than the Hawks last year. I have way more faith in them than that.
Than the Hawks of last season.
Yeah. I bet you'll love that Apex, but
my
only
concern slightly, and we kind of went into it a little bit in our start of the season. Their depth is somewhat questionable. They've had other blokes step up. I'm not going to say his name because I'll get it wrong.
That rookie?
Scratch it.
But
they've got players. I don't think they quite have the depth of the Hawks of last season, but I think their top tier talent is probably on par or if not above. So I'm certainly looking forward to seeing what the Bulls can do for the rest of the season. Lee, take it away. Your number 4.
My number 4 was a team we haven't talked about as of yet, and it's the Philadelphia 76ers. It has changed a bit since, or changed in a downward trajectory since Joel Embiid and as well as Tobias Harris has gone into those.
Tobias Harris back now.
He's back now, but they both went into those health and safety protocols.
Yep.
But like a lot of these teams that we've been mentioning, it's just been that next man up. Tyrese Maxey in particular, last 2 games, he's got a 33-point game and a 31-point game. This guy's young and he's stepping up when he needs to.
Yep.
I love to see that. Milkshake Milton. He's been absolutely amazing as
First time I've heard that. Fair play to you. That's going to catch on. I like that from you.
Just a bit of trivia. Just not trivia, but just a bit of fun fact. I'll squeeze this in real quick. That's where his nickname came from, or that's where his birth name came from. His dad liked milkshakes, and they tied it with Milton. So they named him Shake. I heard that in a game the other day.
Is that legit?
It's legit.
There you go. Lee, just quickly, I kind of started my predictions at the start of the week and kind of amended them as the week progressed. I had them in there at one point. They're on a 3-game losing streak, so I took them out. But I certainly agree in the sense they started the season. We put up a post on our socials, Instagram, early in the week. They were 8-2, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Yep.
Their best start to a season since Allen Iverson led them to a finals appearance. Yeah. I do agree. They're a team to watch out for because at full strength, they're a team to be feared. And if they should, in the event Ben Simmons gets traded, they get a package that's, let's say fair.
They get a good package. They get good pieces back for something that's not playing right now.
And you add it, exactly. And you add that to a team that's got Curry, Danny Green, Embiid, Tobias Harris, Maxey, Thibault, etc. They've got serious credibility about them.
Yeah. Well, can I just say something really quick as well?
By all means.
With Joel Embiid out, Andre Drummond has come into the lineup, and he's had a 25 rebound game and a 20 rebound game. But with Joel in the game, he comes in as that second stringer, but he's not. He's not getting a lot of usage.
Sounds funny to call him Joel. Just sounds a bit funny. Joel Embiid.
But why aren't the 76ers using
Drummond more?
Yeah, Drummond more.
Well, they are now that Embiid's out, and he's looked phenomenal. And it's again, as a Lakers fan, it's disappointing to see these players move on.
It's like a curse.
Oh my God! You look at the players in the last couple of years that the Lakers have traded: Brandon Ingram, Jordan Clarkson, Caruso, Lonzo, Julius Randle.
That's what I was going to say.
Damn it! This team was built for the future almost. These pieces have let go. And granted, I can't be angry because they traded them, they got AD, etc. They got a chip the other year. So, it worked out well. But there's a lot of talent that's gone away.
Where's this come back to? The only thing I can think is big old Frankie Vogel.
Big Frankie Vogel.
You gotta coach your team properly. It looks like these other guys are utilizing their players.
I think we gave up on these players too early. Granted, we got, pieces in return, but
do you know how many times this has happened? Lonzo Ball and Julius Randle to start, but now seeing Andre Drummond, Lonzo Ball just absolutely going off.
A probably unpopular opinion, but I reckon you'd trade those players for a chip any day of the week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I can't be too upset. So, nevertheless, I'll move on. We've got a bit to get through still. My number 5 pick is the Phoenix Suns. Now, they started the season pretty ordinary, and there was kind of a little bit of concern, given they went to the NBA Finals last year. They were 2-0 up, and I know myself, goddamn, I'd penciled them in for a chip. I thought Chris Paul was getting that number one chip. They were home and hosed. The Bucks came back and took them pretty handily. Giannis getting that 50-point in the clinch-out game. Yet they're on 7 on the bounce, and they're really starting to show why they were that team that made the NBA Finals. And this is all whilst, like, Devin Booker, I guess, hasn't quite hit his straps. Chris Paul, hasn't quite hit his straps as well in terms of scoring, in terms of that consistency. Yet they're getting enough from all of these players. Like, they're coming together as a team. It's not, you're not seeing, like, as we saw today, Steph Curry drop 40 points. You're not seeing those kind of performances. Yet they're really in that kind of every man kind of plays their part. And they're getting wins. As I said, 7 on the bounce as of today. They're looking like the team that made the Western Conference Finals. I've put them as my number 5 team, and I think, I think they're building momentum. There's certainly momentum on their side, so look out for them as we march forward over the next couple of weeks.
I just really think their depth is underrated.
Yep.
Cam Payne, Cam Johnson, and Frank the Tank, namely, they've been insane. Like,
I didn't hear, even though he's not performed to the level we thought. DeAndre Ayton's been out for a little bit, but the man himself, JaVale McGee, in the starting 5, Mr. Shaqtin the Fool himself.
Like, they're pretty deep. They're pretty deep. Why the hell is Frank the Tank scoring 31 points in a game?
Because
why? Good question.
Why?
And why hasn't he been picked up on fantasy?
And even better question, I like to think that's an outlier. I don't think their performances we can expect to see quite consistently from Frank the Tank, but nevertheless, they are looking the part at the minute and starting to hit their straps. It might have been a slight off-season hangover, yet they're clicking into gear as we speak. So for me, my number 5 team, the Phoenix Suns.
You go, Ro.
My number 5 team is the Brooklyn Nets. So they're a team who I think most of us, or pretty much every NBA fan, would have thought that they'd probably have a really good season this year. 9-4 to begin the season, probably impacted obviously because of Kyrie Irving, but I think they're still obviously in the race. And I wondered, when Kyrie Irving went down, do you guys think that their chances at a championship took a significant impact to the point where you thought that they weren't going to be contenders anymore? Because I've seen enough, I think, from KD and to a lesser extent James Harden. I don't think
more recently Harden.
Harden.
What do you have today? 39 and 12 or something stupid. Had a big game.
He has the occasional big game, but I think I've seen enough to know that they will be, truly contending at the end of the year. But what do you guys think?
I agree as well. I don't think they need Kyrie to even make it to the finals, to be honest. They've got enough, firepower. I think obviously it's taken a bit for James Harden to find his rhythm, but I think when he taps into that mentality that he can still have these 40-point games as well as facilitate, it's a balance of finding that, like, not being so egotistical with your play style, but also trying to facilitate for all these other players. I think if you find that perfect balance, then he's going to start clicking.
For me, in terms of their championship credentials, I think they've taken a bit of a hit. And that's
just to the point where you don't envisage them truly contending for a title, or do you just think it's had an impact that they'll still be contending?
I think prior to the season starting, like, they were in the top tier, no doubt. Like, on the hypothetical that Kyrie doesn't play for the rest of the season and the team is as they're currently constructed, I put them in the probably second tier. I think the Bucks are ahead of them.
Really?
I do just at the minute.
Fair enough.
And that's partly because I think KD is he's probably one of, if not the best player in the league at the minute. Harden, we know his competency, an MVP, one of the greatest scorers of the 21st century. Yet I just think as a team, as a whole, the Bucks might be a little bit better suited just in terms of their length, in terms of their defensive capabilities. So I think the Nets are still in there. I think they're still a quality team, no doubt about it.
But they're not real contenders. We have that separation of real contenders and contenders.
Yeah.
They're not that real contender to you, which is fair
not
enough.
from what I've seen in the last few weeks since the season started.
Okay.
It's a regular season, so you don't read too much into it. They're going to be in the playoffs, no doubt. They're going to show up when it matters. Yet, from what I've seen so far, they're just a little bit off. We've seen after the first couple of games, as I said to you off the air row before we started, we pretty much penciled Paddy Mills in for the 6th Man of the Year award.
After the first two games.
The first two games, he's cooled down a little since then. LaMarcus Aldridge has been good in his own right.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just something feels a little bit off. The way they kind of choked today nearly against the Pelicans.
Yeah.
They nearly gave up a big lead in the fourth quarter. Nearly gave it up. They pulled it out in the end, yet I'm just not quite sold on them as a team yet.
You compare it back to when KD was at Golden State. I saw an interview with him and Draymond Green, which said he knew every game they were going into that game and they were going to, with pretty much a 95% rate, gonna win. He was positive they were gonna win, where you just don't get that positivity of winning with the Brooklyn Nets yet.
I think a lot goes towards top end talent in a team though. I feel like I'm not ruling them out of being. I've actually still got them in that first tier, regardless of if they've got Kyrie in that team or not. So, a 9-4 to start to the season, I think it's very serviceable and still think they're one of the most powerful teams in the league, regardless of if they've got Kyrie or not.
Absolutely, Lee. Quick, round us out, my man. Who have you got as your number? I tell you what, let's just quickly for anyone out there. As we were planning the episode during the week, I said to begin. As I was plotting ideas for the episode, I said our top 10. What a joke that would have been.
3-hour podcast.
Would have yourself in for a 4-hour.
Oh my goodness, a Joe Rogan special. So
I'll get mine done quick. It's a team we've already talked about, so we'll just rattle it off. I had the Los Angeles Clippers. Paul George recently, he started the season off very hot. He's cooled down a bit. I think the last 3 games he's averaging he's at I think 35% from the field.
Big part in their win over the Miami Heat yesterday.
That's what I was going to say. It's more so that he's still so clutch at the latter end of the games, defensively and offensively, evidently. And also the fact that all these other players can step up. You said Bledsoe. I think in that game against the Heat, or it might have been the game before.
Gave him up in my fantasy. I gave him up. I gave up on him, and now he's starting to perform.
Well, Bledsoe, Reg Jacks, and also Paul George, they all had 20 plus. Yeah. I think they're just trying to adjust to a game without Kawhi Leonard. And then, to be honest, defensively, without Kawhi Leonard, they're doing absolutely magnificent.
Go again, give it to us.
They're doing great. They're going great. But I just
magnificent.
See, it's
magnificent.
You included an X in there somehow.
Yeah, that's a tongue twister. There's a tongue twister an hour and a bit into an episode, isn't it?
No, but there's a reason why Paul George is almost at the top of that MVP ladder, and I'd love to see it continue.
Do you think it will? Do you think I don't want to go into it too deeply, but if you're looking, would it be a surprise to you at the end of the season? You might not win it, but let's say just for the purpose of talking and tying it in with the episode, let's do a top 5.
Yeah.
If Paul George finished in the top 5 of MVP voting, would it be a surprise?
No, not at all.
I don't think so either.
I think it'd be very dependent on where they ended up finishing the Los Angeles Clippers. But I think if they finish anywhere between... If they finish in the top 6, I think he has to be up there because the next best player is Reg Jacks probably. And
come on, give me a break, fellas. God, what are we calling him?
Reg Jacks.
Red Jacks, I guess.
It sounds like Red Jack.
No, like reggae.
If you're gonna play a game, play blackjack instead of Red Jack.
And it's not even. It's REG for Reg, JAX for Jacks.
Jesus Christ,
Reg Jacks with an X.
Goodness gracious me!
Where's Rose red flag?
Wave the red flag. She's over. There it is. Thank you, my man. A big shout out to our props department here at the Daily Dribble podcast. Guys, just quickly recounting our top 5. I'll give you my top 5 real quickly. At my number 1, I had the Warriors, followed by the Bulls, the Clippers, the Wizards, and the Phoenix Suns rounding out my top 5.
I had number 1. I had Golden State, followed by Wizards, followed by the Bulls, followed by the 76ers, followed by the Clippers.
I had Golden State number 1, Washington number 2, Phoenix number 3, they're coming. Number 4, Chicago Bulls, and number 5, Brooklyn Nets.
Oh, you sure?
That number 5 spot actually had me sort of thinking a little bit, but
just a little shout out to little baby Jesus up above that we didn't do number 10, go to the 10, because I tell you what, I don't know if we would have got through it under 3 hours. Guys, what we're going to do real quickly, we're going to each have one question or one point here to talk about in the week that was. I had a couple of points going into this segment, but given we're well and truly over an hour at this point, I've got one question for us to tie us over. The week that was.
Yep, go over it.
For better or worse, what has been the biggest surprise team so far?
I have to say, for me, I'm not even thinking, but what comes straight to mind, the Wizards. Who thought the Wizards would be where they are right now? I think it's the fact that back at the Lakers, like we were saying, Montrezl Harrell, Kuz wasn't doing heat, neither was KCP. They've all come over and they're living up to their full potential. So they're definitely my biggest surprise.
Just for the purpose of rattling through it, are they a playing team or are they a playoff team?
Right now, they're a playoff team.
At the end of the season, what do you think? If we're looking ahead, 82 games done and dusted, are they in the top 6 or are they between that 7 and 10 range?
They're at 8.
Ooh,
they're 8. They're just making it.
Jeez, they're dropping from 1 to 8.
Yeah, no, actually, no. I think they'll be. Sorry, I forgot about the plan. I don't think they'll be in the plan. I think they'll clench that confirmed playoffs.
So they're going to be in the top 6.
Is that 6?
6 and above?
Definitely. I think they'll be 6 or 5.
What are you talking about, Willis? No.
Sorry. Yeah, I just forgot about the plan.
No, I'm with you. Yep. No, that's fair. And granted, what we've seen so far, it doesn't seem as if it's been an anomaly. They're getting performances out of everyone. It's not one person carrying the team. So fair play to you, right?
Wizards is probably the obvious option and it's probably the right option. But I'd tend to go with other teams as well, like probably Cleveland, even though I'm not 100% sold that they're going to, continue this. I think their start of the season has certainly been surprising and certainly one that I didn't envisage. The other team...
I love that word, envisage.
The other team is the Toronto Raptors, sorry, who I think many have thought were probably they're probably going to finish towards the bottom of the standings.
I had them right down the bottom.
It's early days, so who knows what happens from now towards the end of the season. But I think they've shown enough signs to, particularly with Scotty Barnes, that there's going to be light at the end of the tunnel for the Toronto Raptors. But what about you?
I'm going to go on the negative end of things. I've gone the New Orleans Pelicans. As of today, I believe, as I went down there, sitting at 1 and 12.
Yeah,
so,
yuck.
Disgusting. Regardless of he's not coming back tomorrow, but if Zion came back tomorrow, their season is still over. Their season is in the books. Write it out. I do truly, sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, apologize to all Pelicans fans out there, because what have you got to look forward to now for the rest of the season? You've got another close to 70 games of nothing.
And it's not like Zion's coming back full-fledged, putting his heart and soul into the team. He's not that interested in the Pelicans.
There's not many teams, granted, we take Houston out of the equation, Detroit, because we inevitably knew they were going to tank. But for the Pelicans, the last couple of years, you kind of have held on hope since they got Zion. They got Valanciunas, they've got Ingram, granted, out with injury, but you kind of held on hope that they're a team that's,
got
in the play-in. They're in the play-in.
Yeah.
But then they're not going to be. They are absolutely disgraceful, woeful, any other derogatory term I can think of at the minute. Wave the red flag. Their season is over. Thank you, Roy, my man. Shout out once again to our props department. They are horrible. And I just feel so sorry for any fans out there. You see fans don't want to even go to the game. There's nothing to look forward to. This season's over, and it's only going to create disharmony in the team. Ingram is a player who wants to be in a winning position. Zion, when you look at, his ceiling, you see one of the greatest of all time, the most dominant force since Shaq, yet he's not in a position to win. He's not in a position to actually show himself to the ability that he's at.
Yeah.
I think they've been just horrible, and I can't see a world in which, if to be honest, at the minute, if they get 10 to 15 wins, that'll be huge. There's just nothing. And to be honest, they might even, given their season's over, it wouldn't be surprising if they just shut down Zion well and truly really early and hope next season's better, because their season is over.
But how often does that happen though, as well, just quickly? You have a once in a generation type player like Zion. Wasted talent, and maybe like 6 or 7 years into their career, they take off for greener pastures, and you very much get the feeling that Zion could be heading down the same path, maybe sooner than 6 and 7 years. He might be heading to another franchise within the next 1 to 2.
Yeah.
So not good signs.
You're saying what's another example of that? I've got one that's just clicked. I'll just say it real quick. I know he's not at the extent of Zion, but he may be. When Carmelo came in, he would do all he could, but it just wasn't enough to get to the playoffs. That's my reminiscence of that.
Shout out, it's kind of on topic, but kind of not on topic. Shout out to Carmelo himself, probably 6th man of the year at this point.
Yeah, I
hope you're listening. Big fan of the show, no doubt, Carmelo Anthony. Had he not been in the lineup, the Lakers would be in a world of trouble. There's probably 3 games that he's pulled them out of a deep, dark hole.
Yeah.
As we speak, at the time of recording, the Lakers have pretty well just gone down to the Timberwolves. Very disappointing loss there after going the third quarter, 40-11. The Lakers led at halftime and were down well and truly at the third quarter. But nevertheless, guys, normally we like to spend a little more on the week that was, but we're well and truly gone deep into the episode now. Anything else real quickly you want to get off your chest, or are you happy for me to wrap it up?
I just have to get it off my chest. And you just spoke on them. The Timberwolves and Anthony Edwards, he's proving why he went number 1. 48 points, I think, along with a massive stat line.
Against the Warriors early in the week, an absolutely phenomenal showing in a loss nevertheless. But, I certainly think I think Karl Anthony Towns is great, but he is the player to build around.
Yeah.
Bro, anything else from you, my man? Or
no, not too much. I think we need to wind it up, and my computer storage might run out.
There you go, guys. We've got a big couple of weeks coming up. Hopefully an announcement next week or the week after on a new sponsor. A lot to look forward to there. We love it. Also, tomorrow, the NBL Blitz here in Tasmania kicks off. The Jack Jumpers playing their first official game. 20 of our listeners out there who are going, we hope you enjoy it. It's going to be phenomenal. We're certainly looking forward to it. Over the next week or two, depending how our schedule pans out, we're going to do a bit of a review, or a preview, should I say, a preview of the upcoming NBL season, give our awards predictions, our final predictions. So we're certainly looking forward to ramping up the NBL content. Guys, if you're a YouTube viewer, video content, be sure to subscribe, like, comment. We're certainly really enjoying doing the video format here. So, guys, continue with that. All of our audio listeners as well, we love you. We truly appreciate you. Continue to stay up to date with all of our socials, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok. I keep saying that time is of the essence, but our TikTok will start humming in the next couple of weeks. We've got a lot to look forward to. A lot of big news. The Daily Dribble, Season 3, our biggest and best year yet. Can't thank you enough for the continued support. We love it, don't we?
We do.
Absolutely.
Guys, without further ado, let's wrap it up. Have a great week. Enjoy the week of ball. And we can't wait to come back fit and firing next week for another huge episode. Love you. Bye.